CatDog is a show that I just have so much appreciation for. I enjoyed this show so much as a kid, and as an adult, my joy for it has done nothing but grow. It's a show that brings me so much comfort for a multitude of different reasons. However, I feel like, in a way, this show just doesn't get the love that it deserves. Whenever I make a video about this show, I feel like the audience tends to be generally mixed. Some people love it, and others can't stand it. Understandably, because of course everyone has different taste in shows. But still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't surprised by the mixed bag of reactions that this show tends to get. For me personally, it's one of my favorite Nicktoons, so of course I tend to be biased towards it. There's so much to love about this show in my opinion. It's a show that bridged the gap between classic 90s Nicktoons and the new wave of early 2000s Nicktoons, and it did that in a very excellent way, all things considered. And that's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to be checking out a very iconic episode of CatDog. First though, I want to give a shout out to one of my fans, Pat Cahill3724. Pat has been following my YouTube journey for a long time now and is always very kind and supportive in their comments and emails that they've sent me. Specifically though, Pat is the one who commented requesting that I cover this episode, which is what led to me putting this one on my list. So thank you so much, Pat. I really appreciate your support and your suggestion for this video idea. We're looking at none other than CatDog 3001. This episode starts out on a nice sunny spring day at CatDog's house, where we see Cat vacuuming the carpet, which is just covered in crumbs from Dog eating super messy like he always does. As the vicious cycle of vacuuming and dropping crumbs continues, we see the two brothers interrupted by Winslow, who bursts through his little door, stoked to go surfing at the beach.
Ooh, don't scare anyone with your muscles, Hercules.
How'd you like a knuckle sandwich right in the puss?
Give it up, Winslow. You're a puny little rat, and that's all you'll ever be. Here, start pumping up, and maybe you'll get big. In about 1,000 years.
Cat starts laughing at the idea of a big, muscular Winslow, when all of a sudden, he's surprised to hear Dog crying. He asks him what's wrong, and Dog says that he thinks something really weird is going to happen today. Just as he says that, the two stand up and, almost like magic, they start disappearing. We cut to Dog waking up in a mysterious place, surrounded by what appear to be familiar faces, calling him the Great One.
Lola? No, my name is Lolita7. It is the year 3001. I have brought you here in my time transporter machine to save the world.
I am Mervania.
I am Dunglapia.
Ow!
We are the future descendants of your friends.
Mr. Sunspock.
Dog gets excited about getting to save the world, and he reaches down to wake up Cat and tell him, but he's shocked to find that Cat is no longer attached to him.
Where's Cat? Cat? Oh, you mean that nasty-looking growth on your bottom? We removed it.
Hello? Over here? In the trash can?
Lolita7 tells Dog that they outfitted him with robotic legs, complete with rocket-powered paws, which Dog is just super hyped about, evidenced by the way he excitedly starts flying around the room. Meanwhile, Randolphorus wheels over a vacuum cleaner and fixes it to the end of Cat's body instead of giving him legs like Dog got. As Dog continues flying around and having a blast, Lolita tells him that it's time for him to lead them valiantly into battle.
Dog? A leader? Dog, hero, wins the day. Oh. I hate to tell you this, but Dog got his picture in the paper for eating hero sandwiches.
Yep, I ate 46 sandwiches in 37 seconds.
Yes!
That's a new world record.
Everyone worries that they're doomed, except for Lolita, who says that it doesn't matter what kind of hero that dog is, because he's got rebel in his eyes, and he's their only hope. Just as Cat dismisses her, demanding that the two of them be reconnected and sent back home, the building starts to shake as they're interrupted by him.
Behold, it is I, Winslow the 38. I'm big, I'm blue, and I'm bad. Kneel before me, you swine!
Donuts?
Cat wonders just how a descendant of Winslow could have possibly gotten that big, and just like that, he remembers what he said to Winslow about how if he starts lifting now, he might be big in 1,000 years.
And so it continued through the ages. Winslow the First begat Winslow the Second, who begat Winslow the Third, who begat Winslow the Fourth, etc., etc., etc.
As Cat wishes he could take back what he said to Winslow, we cut on over to a giant structure with the shape of Winslow's head on top of it. Inside, we see Winslow the 38th on his throne as he's approached by the descendants of the Greasers, who have come to let him know that they found the secret location of the rebel headquarters. They spill the beans about the rebels having a secret weapon and planning an attack on Winslow's empire. As Winslow prepares them to go confront the rebels, we cut back over to Cat explaining his plan to Lolita and the rest of the crew.
Send us back in time, I won't insult Winslow, and he won't start exercising, and the future of Nuremberg will be saved. You may all applaud now.
The smoke clears, and we see that Winslow and his empire have arrived to battle, with their first blow having unfortunately destroyed the time machine, leaving CatDog stuck in the future. Cat zooms his way over to the time machine to try and fix it. Meanwhile, Dog uses his rocket legs to leap into battle with everyone else by his side. We see everyone hurling fruits and vegetables at the Greasers, who are all armed with actual weapons. Cliff Arata, the descendant of Cliff, fires at them with a slime cannon, making quick work of the Rebel Alliance. Meanwhile, Dog, using his new robotic legs, flies over and uses an EMP ray on the Greasers, rendering their electric aircrafts completely useless. As Dog continues to fly, he finds himself being pursued by Winslow the 38th, who's firing donuts at him as he gives chase. Cat catches Dog as he plummets to the ground, and things look grim as Winslow the 38th flies menacingly above, preparing to finish off the rest of the rebels. Dog lies defeated on the ground, and Cat decides to take the fight into his own hands.
You want a piece of me?
What are you, nuts? You're just a puny little pussycat, and that's all you'll ever be!
We'll see about that. Two beats one every time.
What
CatDog flies to the ground, and next thing you know, we see Winslow and his henchmen tied up and being held in a force field jail cell. Nearby, we see CatDog return to normal as Lolita 7 thanks them for their heroic efforts by giving them a ribbon. With the future saved and the time machine fixed, the two prepare to go back home.
Hey, how come we never saw a CatDog in the future? Aren't we going to have a descendant?
Afraid not, Dog. We're the one and only CatDog.
Oh, we're down here.
Open your eyes. Two-headed mutant mice. That I don't love.
CatDog goes through the time machine, but Lolita 7 realizes that she had messed up the settings and accidentally ends up sending them further into the future. We see them arrive in a strange, colorful future where a society of aliens is hailing a statue of Cat, thanking him for arriving to save them in their hour of need.
So, what do you wish your great one to do for you, my adoring fans? fight a battle, save a princess.
No, we're having a party in 10 minutes.
Oh, party, 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 party.
Clean this place up.
Sure is messy in the future.
Terrific.
Now, first things first, I have to say that I love this episode. This one really brings me joy because I love the whole concept of going into the future and seeing the future descendants of their friends. Sure, they may all be pretty much identical to their ancestors in nearly every way, but still, this trope is one that I've always enjoyed regardless of the show. I specifically love the way that they tackled it in this episode though, because they really leaned in heavy with the science fiction references throughout this one. In the future, we see all sorts of high-tech gadgets in this small hideout under a dystopian world ruled by Winslow of all people. The descendants that we see featured in this one all have names that are some variation of their ancestors' names, but some of them come along with rather clever references, such as Mr. Sunspock, the descendant of Mr. Sunshine, whose name in this episode is a clear reference to Dr. Spock from Star Trek. Or, of course, we have Lube Kenobi, the descendant of Lube from the Greasers, whose name in this episode is a reference to Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars. It's the small references like that which really emphasize the kind of world they're trying to build in this future. I really appreciated the way this episode built this dystopian future Nierberg to resemble almost a mixture of, obviously, Star Wars and Star Trek, with all the high-tech gadgets and such. However, at the same time, a little bit of Mad Max in the sense that the overworld looked mostly dry, destroyed, and very nitty-gritty with barbed wire on certain buildings. It definitely gives a bit of Fallout vibes, but that's definitely not what they were inspired by, considering Fallout definitely wasn't mainstream at the time that this episode was made. On a much bigger level though, I have a lot of appreciation for this episode because it serves as a very important reminder to always be mindful of how you treat others. Ultimately, this episode encompassed the timeline of an entire millennium, with the climax of that passing time resulting in a giant Winslow that takes over Nierberg. All of this because Cat made a really rude comment towards Winslow who didn't take it well at all. Cat made fun of Winslow for being small, which led Winslow and the entire rest of his bloodline on a quest for revenge that would only be fulfilled when one of their descendants reached peak physical fitness to take revenge by force. By that point though, the revenge wasn't even directed at Cat. It was just revenge against the entire city of Nierberg in general as a result of Cat's actions a whopping 1,000 years before. In the grand scheme of things, this episode taught us as kids to be mindful of our actions because us treating someone a certain way could be the straw that breaks the camel's back in a sense. You never know what someone could be going through in their personal life, and you making one backhanded comment towards them in jest could, in all reality, be what leads to a catastrophic outcome in the long run. One thing I did find a little odd though, is the fact that Cat was the one teasing Winslow in the first place. By all means, we're all privy to the fact that Cat and Winslow don't exactly have the most healthy relationship whatsoever, but I find it odd because usually we see the events of this episode occur with the roles reversed. It's fairly typical for Winslow to be the one coming at Cat unprovoked. He's usually making fun of him or doing things to make Cat's life harder, which in turn makes Cat poke back at him as a result. In this episode though, Cat just kind of comes at Winslow in a really rude way, completely unprovoked. Winslow's just minding his own business and talking about how excited he is to go surfing, then out of nowhere, Cat just decides to rag on him for being small. With that being said though, it's definitely worth noting that, like I already pointed out, this same thing is always happening with the roles reversed. So with that in mind, maybe Cat was just trying to beat Winslow to the punch, or maybe Cat has some pent-up resentment towards Winslow because he's always treating Cat like trash. Interestingly enough, on both sides of this, it circles back to being mindful of how you treat people. Sure, Cat treated Winslow bad, which resulted in him getting full-blown roided out in the future, but prior to any of that, Winslow was the one who has a long-standing history of treating Cat badly. Maybe if he'd treated Cat a little more like how he treats Dog, none of this would have ever happened. The dynamic in this show is a really interesting one. more often than not, we constantly see Dog getting praise while Cat always gets the short end of the stick. In this one in particular, we see Dog being hailed as a hero for practically no reason at all, which, given the context of this show, is no surprise. These future folks literally found a newspaper clipping where the headline implies that Dog is a hero, and as a result, he's not only called upon to be their savior, but is also showered with the hero treatment and praise for basically doing nothing. Then from there, when Dog tries to save the day, he's absolutely unsuccessful. However, it's Cat who ends up stepping up to the plate and literally saving everybody. He has the idea to connect himself to Dog, and even ends up taking control as he utilizes Dog's body and the vacuum that they're attached to in order to suck up the key members of the evil empire and save the day. Now, what does he get in return for that? Sure, they thanked him and gave him a ribbon, but when he was sent to the distant future, he gets worshipped by a group of aliens who straight up summoned him there to clean their entire house for a party. It's kind of a shame to realize how often Cat ends up getting his parade rained on. Like, this man pretty much single-handedly saved the future and another 1,000 years past that. Instead of being hailed as a hero for his actions, he's known as a vacuum. On top of that, another thing that's definitely worth pointing out is how much of a genius that Cat really is in this episode. Throughout the whole series, he's portrayed as the smart one, especially in comparison to Dog. However, in this episode specifically, we would see Cat arrive in the future, and after being there for not even a few hours, he's already single-handedly fixed a broken time machine. Bearing in mind, this is a device that neither Cat or anyone from his time period would be familiar with because time travel hadn't been discovered yet. Cat uses his natural intellect to fix the time machine on his own, and that right there is incredibly impressive. Yet, despite all of this, the only thing he ends up getting noticed for in the future is cleaning. It's episodes like this that really highlight just how awful it is that Cat gets treated the way that he does. Meanwhile, Dog gets showered with praise and love, usually for doing pretty much nothing. That's not to say that I don't like Dog as a character. He was always my favorite character in this show, but I will definitely admit that I'm guilty of not appreciating Cat as much as he deserves. Cat, all things considered, is an important character in this show, but more importantly, to the dynamic that exists between him and Dog. He's the yin to Dog's yang. They're two opposites that really contradict each other in many ways, but at the same time, in all the right ways to promote an interesting brotherly dynamic. If there's anything else I wanted to touch on in this episode, it would be Winslow in general, both past and future. I've always thought it was really interesting to see the way that Winslow was portrayed in the future. He's this big, massive, muscle-bound meathead in the future, which couldn't be further from how he's portrayed in CatDog's present day. I always thought that it was hilarious how they drew him with a big old mohawk and a mustache to put just a little more emphasis on how much of a big, tough guy he is. Of course, I have to take a sec to acknowledge a part of this episode that I never put much thought into, and that would be the progression of Winslow over the years. I remember seeing this as a kid, but never really paying it much mind, but looking back on it now, this is actually really cool. We see the original Winslow being the tiniest of the bunch, lifting the straw with donuts that Cat threw at him. Then his son, Winslow II, who's slightly bigger, is seen rapidly jumping rope. I really find this interesting because of how they portray the changing of styles as the time continues to pass. Winslow II is seen sporting long hair and a pair of shorts that seem to have sharp teeth around the waistline. I can't help but wonder why those teeth are there though. Sure, they could just be trying to portray that he's getting more tough, so he has some sharp teeth to increase that tough guy edgy persona. Or maybe they could be the teeth of an animal that Winslow conquered, potentially because the world could have already been thrown into some sort of dystopia by some unknown force at this point in the future. Or, on an even darker level, maybe those are Cat's teeth that Winslow's son claimed after defeating him in a quest to avenge how Cat treated his father. Moving on to the next Winslow though, we see him not really any bigger than his predecessor, but he is however enjoying a diet of all fruit while sporting a mohawk and an odd square looking Speedo. Then the next Winslow, who seems to be substantially bigger than the last, is seen pressing some pretty heavy looking weights while rocking a septum piercing and what appears to be a mankini, oddly enough. Then the next Winslow in line seems to be slightly bigger while doing one-handed handstand push-ups in a normal looking pair of trunks with some really interesting looking mutton chops. After that, for what seems like a split second, we cut to the Winslow that I would consider to be at his peak level of fashion, standing there munching on a chicken leg while sporting a multicolored loincloth and a hilarious looking hairstyle that almost looks like 4 ice cream cones fixed to his head. The jump in size from that Winslow to the next, though, is very substantial, while we see this one working out in some tiger-striped leggings with some minor purple face paint. After that Winslow, we seem to gear towards the distant future, as we see the next one sporting a futuristic-looking hat and shorts while he stands there chugging a protein shake. Then, after that one, we get to the really buff Winslow, as we see the next in the bloodline looking massive while just rocking some shorts with stars on them, which then leads to, of course, Winslow the 38th, who has the iconic mohawk and stash with a cape, pink leggings, black boots, and matching gold armband and knee pads. I have to point out though, as interesting as the progression of all the different Winslows was, it was kind of a bummer in a sense because as time passed and the Winslows got bigger, I have to assume they lost their charm in a sense. One of the things I love most about Winslow is how clever and funny he is. He's always got a one-liner locked and loaded, and he drops them just at perfect times. However, Winslow the 38th didn't have that. He was just a big, angry dictator bent on destruction, which made me enjoy his character a lot less. I think it would have been way better if he was just this big, massive jerk who was charmingly hilarious. It would have made for a rather funny juxtaposition for the villain character. But with that being said, it makes sense that he's angry. I mean, the last 1,000 years of his bloodline have been dedicated to getting massive as part of this overarching revenge plot, after all. As far as Winslow's wit and hilarity goes, I definitely have to point out what might possibly be my favorite Winslow gag of all time. Not gonna lie, I completely forgot about this one, and that's probably because I didn't get it as a kid. It comes at the point in the beginning where Cat is harassing Winslow.
Don't scare anyone with your muscles, Hercules.
You like a knuckle sandwich right in the puss.
I'll say this much. Throughout this whole series, Winslow is without a doubt one of the funniest recurring characters, but him threatening to give Cat a knuckle sandwich right in the puss might be one of the funniest gags I've ever seen in this show. All things considered, I really appreciate this episode. It's one that I'll admit I haven't thought about in years, but on the whole, it's a really good episode that comes along with a great reminder to check yourself in the way that you treat others. On top of that, it's one that certainly changed the way that I think about Cat all in all. But what do you guys think? Did this episode change your perceptions of Cat? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, massive shout out with love to all of my patrons, especially those of you in the true 90s kids tier. Your support means so much to me, and I can't thank you enough for being a part of my YouTube journey. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and give a little praise to the algorithm in hopes that it pushes this one to everyone else. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Alone in the world with a little cat dog.